stepped down and she actually started, she was the director of ministers for the diocese, at the diocese. And she got my job.
If anyone would look, I was at another meeting. How could you? Do you take anything? Yeah, I would take you over. I'll take one of the hands. No way. It's unbelievable. I don't like it. So that's what I have. Yeah, I know. And Saturday, I was driving from for my great niece's graduation. Wasn't rain. I know sometimes it's like just because it's my thing. Because I might try to yell at me. Why did you have to wash your feet? And wash my window screen. Oh. Discuss. Because you want. No detail. Yeah.
To another question, because it'll save maybe time when we get into the meeting. I noticed some of the opera expenditures, the stuff with Sharon Thomas, out of curiosity, what is that? She goes on the trips. Pardon me? She goes on the trips. She gets paid for that?
Yeah, they checked it.
Why not use a volunteer instead of paying somebody to do it?
Because,
Look at it. Pardon me? Look at it.
yeah, you just.
It's not much. Oh, it's $100 each. And she gets a free meal and whatever out of it. I mean, not that Sharon Thomas is a good person, no doubt about that. But you could use any one of your volunteers.
Well, I did that.
Yeah.
And everybody said.
Looks like sort of.
I don't know what those numbers are in there.
Oh, where.
And they were,
Okay.
marks. I did
Yeah.
just that,
Okay.
but I didn't want to have discussions.
Yes.
So I'll take them out, don't worry.
Oh, now I get it, yes. But although when we get, why don't we
All
start?
right, I think we're ready.
Beverly is here. All right. Hi, everyone. Let me go. It's Debbie Small. Joan Poco. She actually wrote to me and said she was looking tonight. Karen Fortino. Karen Panett.
Here.
You. Marilyn Shapley here. Karen Janowski here. John Parsons.
Here.
Sally Hoyt. Ah, there's Mark. Sandy Schaefer. You're just waving at someone.
Oh, Mark, wait, wait.
Oh, I didn't know if you were indicating some contact with Sandy Schaefer. Okay, Nancy Twadro. Here. Nancy Zimlack. Here. Jackie Behenna.
Here.
Rosemary Di Benedetto.
Here.
Beverly Cuneo. Muted, but here. Waving. And Jean Prado.
Yeah.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 full members. We need to ask one of our associates to stand in for a full member. Rosemary, would you like to do it?
Yes, I will.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, with that, we can convene at 6:36. All right, approving the main minutes. Did everyone have a chance to read the main minutes, and are there any edits? And John, I particularly point to you because the summary of your discussion of the bill does not match what you were telling me you thought we had done at the last one.
Well, this is just a, whatever.
Marilyn, I do have one.
Okay.
And I mentioned it to Nancy. I left
Uh-huh.
to go to the other meeting and then that needed to be documented.
Do you know what time?
I left at 6:55
Okay.
to go to this other meeting that I had next door.
Down at the bottom.
Good question.
Yeah, I've never seen that in minutes.
Well, I'm at two meetings
I know.
here and just in case.
Okay, no, I appreciate it, just in terms
Well,
of where would
you
we put it?
always see people say, that when somebody arrived at 6:47 or things,
Mhm.
that's always in there.
No, I hardly ever see that, but we.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
doing that. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay,
I'll just add it at the bottom
okay. As long as it's in the document.
or somewhere.
Or somewhere in the flow of conversation, I think, the topic.
Well, you were after. I'll,
You can ask Mark.
Mark.
Hello.
You need a legal opinion.
OML.
Yeah, I mean, I would actually go back and watch the video and see when she left and just document when she left, the exact time, and place it in the flow of the meeting
6:55.
minutes. That is required to do. If someone leaves or enters a meeting at any time, you're supposed to document it, or if you take a recess, etc.
Okay,
You can chime in if you want.
I think you're spot on.
Thank
Yeah.
The question
But
is.
I do remember it being kind of right as just like a moment before the other meeting started, so.
exactly. You actually came back, but it was like a moment before we adjourned, as I recall.
Yeah, that didn't even count.
doesn't matter.
All right. John, did you have any edits to what it says about your comments about the bill?
No, at this point.
Okay, so the record is correct.
Yeah, I mean, it's a summary. I mean, this isn't an exact replica of everything that was said.
No,
It's just a summary.
Okay, all right,
And the
okay.
summary is
Just
fine.
giving you the option since you said, you reminded me of things that were not in my memory, but it's not that I didn't forget. So I flipped in the minutes thinking I'd see it. Anyway, all right. So are we ready to vote to approve the minutes with the amendment? Moved.
Second.
Thank you. So I'm calling Karen Panett,
Yes.
Marilyn Shapley, yes, Karen Janowski.
Yeah.
John Partisans.
Yes.
Nancy Twydrach.
Yes.
And Rosemary Di Benedetto.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, minutes are accepted as amended. Select Board recalc liaison update.
We still haven't met. We haven't met in 2.5, 3 months. So there is no update.
Oh, no, Mark has lots of updates.
Well, that's from the selectmen, not recalc.
Okay, well, that's why I put them together.
So the select board has been discussing extending the timeline for recalc and adjusting its charter to do 4 things. And this will actually be voted on at our meeting tomorrow night. So there's a proposal to kind of change the charter and add timing to it. The one more immediate thing is related to the feasibility study, and it's to have recalc kind of take a lot of the work that it's already done and organize that in a way, along with some program kinds of questions, to work with whoever is going to be awarded the feasibility study work. So let me take one step back. The select board voted to have the town manager move ahead on a feasibility study that would look at multiple locations, take what we've learned, a lot of it from recalc already, and use that as the basis for looking at different locations and talking about different needs. So there's I'll call it the short-term need for Recalc to move forward on that. Then the proposed changes to the charter are three things. One is to really dig in on programs, to talk to the various centers that we've already spoken with, the 13 or 14 other centers, to see what we already have in our notes, to reach out again and learn what programs they're offering, which ones are the most popular, which ones are at all centers versus just some centers, and figure out if we can start to talk about what we think the continued programming needs could look like at an enlarged center once we didn't have the same space constraints that we're facing today. So programs is piece one. Piece two is to think about transportation. And we're talking here about bringing people to the center, from the center, other kinds of transportation needs that would relate to senior center and senior activities in general. And the third piece relates to how do different senior centers, community centers, how do they operate? How do they get financed? In other words, how much comes from the town budget? How much comes from private sources? How much comes from grants? Is there anything that can come from other governments, state government, federal government, whatever, to take a look at what are the best practices for how people are able to get funds. And the reason why this is so important is because when we do go to town meeting and talk about the new center, we want to be able to present a full discussion of what needs to go on. So it's not just the physical space, but it's programming needs also. It can be staffing needs. It may relate to a variety of things. And town meeting is going to need to vote on funds for the center, but they're also going to be very interested in what are the operating costs and how are we going to manage those costs? And have we looked into grants and other kinds of activities that might be able to help? So I think Recalc is in a great position to be able to work on these things. And clearly the council will play a role in some of these activities through you, John, as liaison, but even more broadly, I think, we've already shown that we can have some joint meetings and other activities. I did speak, briefly with a few people about this in terms of how to structure it. Marilyn and I spoke for a little bit just to kind of talk about it. I spoke a little bit with Jenna. I spoke with the chair and vice chair of Recalc, all to kind of understand, would this make sense? Would people be willing to dig in? And would this add a lot of value to what we're going to need to bring to town meeting? And the answer seemed to be yes, very much so. I also have put into what the select board will discuss tomorrow night, it's in the agenda, a question about possibly adding some additional associate members to Recalc, perhaps someone who has a bit more of a background in some of these financial activities in terms of sources of funds used for senior centers and perhaps other kind of governmental activities. But it'd be great if someone had that background in town and be willing to participate and help things out here as well. We also had talked always about finding people that represent, if you will, the senior community, but aren't necessarily current people that go to the Pleasant Street Center. And the goal there would be to find out what are the things that would be, big draws to them that would bring them into the center as well. So the select board, kind of rounding this whole thing out, select board tomorrow night, and in the agenda has the ability to vote on this. And we would extend the date of Recalc at least to June 30th of 2024 in order to accomplish those tasks. It may be they need a little bit more time, but I propose June 30th of 2024 to work on that. So those are kind of the Recalc pieces in terms of update. I mentioned that the select board voted to authorize the town manager to go forward on the feasibility study, which nominally he already had through the select board's vote in using the ARPA funds to do that. But we wanted to make sure that the whole board is kind of on track in terms of what's going on. And some of the feedback from board members was, let's use our money wisely. Let's be really careful. If there are things that we can do ourselves or we've already done them ourselves, then we don't need to pay a consultant to tell us that we did a good job or to kind of redo the work. So to spend the funds wisely, but to also make sure that we're in a position to move forward to town meeting, to be able to say, hey, this is the space, this is the programming, this is some information on on funding in terms of what we're going to be asking the town for additionally to support things, and to have a full package available for town meeting. I should just add anecdotally that I know a few centers that we visited, Linfield being one of them, indicated that they do a lot of their own fundraising, and they have a thrift shop and a few other activities that they do. And the net effect is that a lot of their program funds come from those fundraising activities. It's not all coming out of asking for more of the operating budget of the town, that they have a lot of other ways to do it. So I think it's very important that we explore all those opportunities to figure out what the best approach can be, and what we're going to need to ask the town for, so that it's a full package. Let's say the other thing is, so let's talk just for the RFP for a moment. So the RFP has not yet been issued, but we've authorized the town manager to work on it. And it will be hopefully over the next kind of 3 to 4 weeks that should be done and issued. That's the goal that the town has right now. Let me stop with that and see if there are any questions.
Yes, Nancy. Mark, I really like the new recalc priorities for transportation and financing options. I think those are right on target and really good. I have some concerns about the whole programming issue. Recalc during the past year did do an assessment of senior programs here in Reading, as well as Recalc generated a chart of programming options, as well as a very detailed chart of programming options along with square footage from the Newton feasibility study. So I have concerns, and like you said earlier, you know, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We don't want to do what we've already done. And I think there actually has been a very thorough look at what the programming options would and could possibly be. So I would have caution that Recalc spends a lot of time in that area, because it's redundant and repetitive of what's already been done. So I think Recalc giving that information to the consultant will be able to pull it all together into a summary report, and that's what we would hire him for. So I caution Recalc. We certainly don't need more focus groups. We don't need more community meetings. And I think you'll make a lot of over 60 population really upset if they start to see that. So I would have a lot of caution on how much time that we rehash programming functions. If you look back, I just have one more point, and you look back at studies that were done in 2015, 16, 17, 18, all the programming options are very similar. So I caution Recalc spending its time in that arena. The other thing, if anybody else has any comments, I have one more comment after that, but I don't know if anybody else has comments on Recalc focusing on these 3 priorities. But
If I had to make a comment, I'd say Elder Services is the best source to find out what we need for programming.
right,
So let me respond in a couple ways. So first, thanks, Nancy, and agreed. No desire to rehash things, and certainly not to pay an outside group to rehash things. That would kind of be adding insult to injury. We definitely don't want to do that. We may have a lot of ideas on programs, and that's great. I think we don't necessarily know kind of what is offered at all the different centers. It would be great to see that and to understand which are the most popular. There's a question that I think the council at some point can talk about, which is which ones do we want to make sure that we do offer versus those that perhaps aren't as popular in other places? Or are there ways that If it's offered nearby and there's room at that location, do we need to offer it also, or would we be better off offering other things? I want to be able to see those options. So let me just finish if I could. So the other part relating to all of this comes back to costs also. So how are we going to deal with those? What does that mean? What are the various charges that different centers around us do? How do they offer differential charges, whether it's based on need or just a general philosophy? How does that work? How do we handle people from other communities coming to our facility in the same way that we would want our people to go to other facilities? I think there are still some open questions that can be addressed and be helpful. And again, I think that coming to town meeting, we want to complete as possible look at this is what it means to have a 15,000 square foot senior focused center, the kinds of programs that we want, the kinds of costs to be incurred, what the ask is going to be into the operating budget. The measure that I use here is, do I feel that we're ready right now to do that? In other words, if we were able to move forward at 17 Harnden, could we do this full picture, including operating costs and all these other pieces, based on programs? And my answer is no. I'm not.
I disagree wholeheartedly. The answer is yes. We have the information. And if we just continue to ignore what is currently being spent on center programs, what's being offered on our center programs, I could see a cursory review of the other community centers, but we know all that. And I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in, but I think that's the job for the consultant. And I think that Recalc should be spending its time on broadening its goal and looking at transportation and looking at financing options and not spending time on programming issues. I think that's the job of the consultant, taking the information that we already have. And, we've expanded the programs, Chris has. We have a good idea of what's out there. So I personally think that's redundant. I don't know if anybody else feels that way on the Council on Aging.
I agree.
I agree with that.
The one piece we don't know about is about the population we don't serve, those who are not included. And you're not going to find that from looking much of anywhere else.
Right.
This is a common problem. I mean, I don't know of any center that's open most nights or even necessarily one true night. Some are open to like 5:30. Big whoop. You race home from work and you're already 75 minutes bingo.
But I think
But that won't be gained by looking at lots of other centers. That's a different research question.
I think what Marilyn just suggested, if the Recalc wants to take on trying to figure out who is not participating in the senior center currently in the activities, and how can we reach out to them to find what they need? We don't have that information. So I think if Recalc's purpose was to target those groups, that is not redundant. That would be very, very helpful.
I agree.
Anybody else?
I disagree with.
Okay.
No.
It probably
She spoke up first. Hang on.
I just for the record, when people were agreeing with Nancy, two people put their hands up there.
All right.
So Mark, you probably couldn't see, but two people up
Okay.
there were in agreement.
Okay. It wasn't an official vote. It was a thumbs up.
I know, but I mean, it's,
All right. Yes.
So I agree, we don't want to be redundant because there is a lot of information out there. And if we just keep exploring the same things, we're kicking the can down the road and it's delaying the process. And I do really like the idea of looking into who is not benefiting from the center for the 60+ community and what are the factors that are preventing them from participating. That is, like you said, is not information that we have. So I am in agreement with what Nancy and Marilyn are both saying, and I hope that that information gets communicated to Recalc as a discussion that we've had here at the COA.
Yes, Rosemary. And Rosemary, we now have our full members, so thank you for your short service this evening as a member substitute. Karen Potino. has
I can
been-
tell you who's not participating. It's the people who can't get to the center. It's transportation. That is a big issue.
Yeah, that's not the only one.
One factor.
I can't participate because it's not open at night. That's the main reason I agreed to be chair, because I saw it as a personal cause. And I'm not gonna-
But I think more people don't participate because they can't get there.
I think there are plenty of those too, but we don't have any numbers on any of this. Is the point.
So I don't think that it's our job right now to have a discussion about who's participating, who's
Right,
not participating. I think we need to let the select board know that we think that Recalc should put its energies into that issue and not rehashing and coming up with program ideas.
Is that a
I
job for
agree.
recap or a job for the council?
It's not a job for the council.
It's a job for recap.
It's a,
You're looking at,
it's a job for Recalc.
So recap, then they'd have to have a new charter.
well, you're getting a new charter. You haven't got one yet.
Right.
So tomorrow night we'll be voting on that.
Well, you
Right.
could add something to
You
it
could add,
or amend.
I do think though, with all this conversation, I mean, I think it's always good to look at programming.
Yeah.
I think it's always good to look at outreach. I think it's really important to look at all these things, and more eyes are important, you know. I've spent 12, 15 years looking at everyone's newsletter and spying on their websites to see what programmings they do, what they do for transportation. I do think it's all very important. Something I do caution everyone about is just because Linfield is doing something does not mean it's going to work in Reading.
right,
Agree.
My biggest challenge in Somerville was as I tried to get programming, I was always told, hey, Cambridge is doing this. Well, the people in Cambridge are different than the people in Somerville. It's a different dynamics, it's a different makeup. And the majority of the time, when we tried to pull something from Cambridge and do it in Somerville, it didn't work. But they could make it work in Cambridge. So I do, as we move forward, I think it's great to look at programming. I do it every week on every center in the area. But it's good to not just necessarily, again, look at the centers around us, but try to get towns with the same makeup as Reading might have. And that'll give us a better chance of having whatever programs we bring in work. Because if I stand here and just say, hey, Linfield's doing this, more than likely, there's a good chance it's not gonna work and we're spinning our wheels. So I encourage everyone to keep that in mind. It's a very important factor, and it's a very hard factor too, to try to figure out, okay, what is Reading made of, the interest, and what can be.
Good points. Yes, John.
I'd like to have someone explain to me why so many people think that it shouldn't be the job of the council to be working on figuring out why we're not getting a whole lot of people down. To me, that's something the council's talked about on and off over the years, is something the council should be very much involved in. Why do people think we shouldn't be?
well, my response to that is we need volunteers. So John, I appoint you as head of that committee.
Survey design, research methodology, getting it all.
Research, making phone calls, organizing.
We've got money. We can give you money.
Well, and just to, I'm just gonna throw this out there. Our two biggest problems and most problems of a senior center is the stigma of it being called a senior center.
Yeah.
And the other issue is our hours, which is what we've been currently working on. We will never be able to reach a huge portion because right now we are working hours. So that really limits anyone 70 or younger, really, who's working.
Which is a lot.
And the stigma of it's a senior center.
Yeah.
And to get rid of that stigma is going to be a huge part of growing any center. You know, I asked the Lions Club when they did their dinner last month. They're all probably, I think, 60s or 55 and older.
Yeah.
I was like, why don't you come to the senior center? They're like, it's called a senior center.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually why they named it the Pleasant Street Center, was to get rid of calling it the senior center, but.
Yeah.
But
So
it really is.
it's good to keep those two things in mind. We really do have good information. But, you know, and please ask, you know, but beating that stigma and, you know, getting beyond the hours that we're open. You know, if we continue on the same track, we're gonna just continue with the same group we have, no matter what. But anyhow, thank you.
So
But I don't think
Great points, Chris. I agree.
yeah, but if we can just get back on track, it's a response to the recalc charge to look at programs. And I think the council is saying that we think that that might be a redundant, repetitive issue. You can spend a little bit of time on it, but to spend a lot of time on that and resources is not going to help our goal. Jean?
It is important for programming, but do you think this part of the research, once we have a building, then you start looking into the adequate facility to enhance the programs? We have no new building. We don't have the adequate facility right now to even be comparing.
I think we're looking at potentially building a building, and it might be driven by programming in
Yeah.
part.
Right.
Yeah, so it's the reverse of what you're talking about. And you need.
Well,
programs.
I see it the other way around. We need a building.
So I think we're in agreement. I think that we need both. And I think what Recalc has done to date focused on facility more than anything else. And
No, I don't, oh,
we gathered some other information, but truthfully, our charter was, and we focused on, and as a member of the committee, I can tell you, we focused on facility. And we talked about what are the kinds of programming and make sure we'd have the right kinds of spaces available. Absolutely, that's critical. And the next step is, again, I envision going to town meeting and saying, here's the plan. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what the facility is. Here's the buildup of the facility. These are the funding needs that we're going to have. These are the things that, you know, ideally are grant funding, other sources of funding, et cetera. And here's how much we'd be looking for from the town budget. And folks, that all needs, people all need to nod their heads and say, yep, I'm willing to do that. And when I say everybody, I mean town meeting and then the voters. So it's not a foregone conclusion. And as a select board member, I can tell you, I am not comfortable today saying we know exactly what to do. We don't yet. We're going to get help from the consultant. We're going to have the benefit of some dedicated volunteers willing to dig in and do some other stuff. And that's awesome. I also hear you, Nancy, that, you know, it shouldn't be another survey saying what programs do you want. Completely agree. We don't need to do
it
that.
shouldn't be
That's not what it
focus
is at all.
groups and it shouldn't be, you know, it's like if.
But we
if
also
you-
don't know anything about the 60 to 70-year-olds in terms of why they don't come or what programs they'd want. Or
Right,
what
and I
people do
think
that's more
if
successful.
Recalc, I think if Recalc could focus on that, that would be very, very helpful in helping us determine what the future needs are in terms of size. We know for our current population, we need about 15,000 square feet and to adequately have programs that currently come to the center. But if we want to expand,
Shorten some of the hours.
we're gonna, you know, what are the space needs? And maybe Reading only has 1,000 seniors that need services, but we don't know that answer. And it would be great if ReCalc could focus on that.
Yep.
The other thing that needs to be, I think, needs to be added to that, the scope, the charter, is the recommendations. You need another bullet in there that identified that ReCalc submitted a final report, and you need to highlight the findings in there, because the findings were very clear. And I think that also needs to be in the charter, because that's going to move ReCalc forward and focus on the mission for the next 2 to 3 years. So I really think that needs to be in there. And we can send you a sample of what that might look like.
A particular one I would emphasize there is their one that's, I'm reading out of the report. The primary recommendation from ReCalc is to identify and implement a solution to the facility needs for the senior population in the immediate 2 to 3 year timeframe. And on that vein, I'm a little concerned that we're scoping out research that's a year long. My question is, when might you be, no, it's not, okay. We've got the sunsets not for a year, so I'm assuming it's gonna go for a year, but maybe I'm misinterpreting that.
So there also, maybe what I'll do is I'll pull up the select board agenda, but it is requesting as much as possible to be done by the end of the calendar year 23. I don't think it can all be done, but I think a bunch of it can.
Okay, I thought I saw June 24 in there somewhere.
That is the date where I'm suggesting it continue until, but also specifically it's asking for presentations to town meeting and as much as possible to be accomplished by the end of calendar 23.
Okay. Rosemary, you have a question? And we have to move on from this topic soon, or it will become the topic of the night, which is not a bad topic. But we have
I just want to agree with Chris that it is a stigma to keep saying senior center. And we say it over and over again. We have it on all of our paperwork that goes out. The sign that Jane Burns put up at the front of the center says Pleasant Street, and then underneath it says senior center. Why can't we paint over that and start there to eliminate those words and eliminate senior center from all our correspondence?
And call it an active living center. Why can't we just do that?
Or we could do, yeah, active living or.
But anyways, we're off topic here.
Are there legalities involved in doing that, or can we just do it? Stop.
I think, Rosemary, we need to make that a topic for our next meeting. I've been chastised. We've been asked to keep us on things that are explicitly on the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
We could put that on next month's
Yes,
agenda.
please.
I think it's a good point, Rosemary.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And actually, it's the month after next. Just a reminder, there's no July meeting. We meet again in August. So,
That's very good.
pardon me? What was that?
Want that in the minutes, John?
I didn't hear what he said, so.
But it's on the recording. So I guess where we stand, Mark, is we're a little uncomfortable, well, maybe a lot uncomfortable with the summary of what we accomplished last year. You focused on things that are not true. It's just that the emphasis is different in my mind from what was in the findings. And in particular, the 2 to 3 year window focusing on top priority is the seniors, meeting senior needs. It just, if someone's new coming into it and they read what was just in that charge, they would not see that. And it's not that you won't give them the other documents, but since it was there in bold on page 1, I personally would like to see it there. If you could just add it.
The document is, it's adapting the existing one. So it's basically adding
I
those
understand.
areas that I
I
highlighted.
understand, but you start by summarizing what was accomplished, and that's from
So-
the summary.
So I think, I have proposed not creating a new charter, but instead adding to the existing. So again, it's up to the 5
Oh,
board members tomorrow night to have that discussion. And look, all the meetings are public meetings, and there's an expectation that the council individual members as well as, if and when there are going to be some joint meetings, are participating in the process as well as other people. So the ability to get focus and make sure that, certain things are being covered, certainly have that capability. What I want to take advantage of is this group of 7 people that have done a really nice job already, to keep them motivated and working on this and adding to, what we need to be able to put together a full package, to be able to bring it to town meeting, to be able to bring it to the voters, and to be successful.
I think the point is not a question about the new parts, A through E. The point is about the summary of what was accomplished, and the key things that are cited don't, in our mind, in the mind of several of us have talked about it, jive with what the priority findings are as stated in the final reports. And we think that sets the context for all that we're doing this year. So we'd ask that that be included in the part at the top where you're saying what was accomplished last year.
I will bring it up as a topic of discussion and see where we head. I am, if it is going to derail the efforts to move things forward, I think it would be a big mistake to.
Why would it
Why
derail
have
it?
to
If all you have to do is amend
we're-
it and say add this sentence.
I think we're getting off track. We're quite behind. I want to value our time and all the other.
I understand, but if I could get the answer to my questions, why would that derail it if all you need to do is add a sentence?
Well, again, it'll be up to the board tomorrow night.
All right. Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right. All right, that was select board recap liaison update. Simon's Way liaison update.
So we met and did a lot to report. We had, our charge was expanded, the land that we are responsible for proposing some options for the select board to consider on Simon's Way. I can actually show the, I don't know that you can see it, but there is a new map now. This was the original charge, this area here, the light blue. Our expanded charge now is all of this buildable land here. And then there are some environmental restrictions, vernal pools, this is what's already there. So we are now allowed to consider a larger parcel of land. And so we met with the town engineer who talked with us about that and about some of the limitations, some of the hardships. But we did get that approved, the select board did approve expanding our, what we are considering and when we propose. We are also supposed to make our recommendations to the select board by the end of August, which we believe is too soon. And so we are going to be asking to extend that as well. We understand that there's a feasibility study going on, which will end probably after what we recommend to the board, because we don't know. There's so many balls juggling, and we are going to make recommendations about what we believe are the best uses. We did close the survey. We had over 1,700 responses. The most popular options were, in order of what to use that land for, what are their top priorities. The biggest one was recreation, and that can potentially cover all ages. We, open space came in next. Third was other, which was, and then seniors, the senior center, senior services and senior center was fourth. So that, was still to be considered, but the huge, largest percentage, 66.76% was on recreation, and senior services was 16.56%. So it was not as much of a priority. And so we also identified the criteria that we are going to be using when we make recommendations around to propose to the select board. And so we named our criteria at that point. And just want to make sure.
Was that criteria for?
Evaluating. So,
Okay.
yeah, so we need, because we need to know, what are we looking at when we make recommendations? So we did identify, let me see, 11 scoring criteria that we will consider in making our recommendations. And then we also spent a lot of time even looking at what our charge is from the select board as well. And really focusing in on what the select board is requesting from us. But again, it is impacted by, recalc, select board. So, so that's the update.
Thank you. Questions? Yes, John.
How much have you explored the effects and the costs of what an environmental cleanup would be?
It's, that's not something that we can consider because we don't, but it is, one of the criteria is the impact on on tax burden. So that's one of the criteria. We don't know that information.
A cleanup could cost millions.
Exactly. So, and that we can propose solutions. It's up to the select board then to say, well, to look further and decide if that's feasible. We don't know. There's a lot of unknowns about the land.
I think to a certain degree, the town is still paying for the old dump. Which was a big reclamation project.
Okay.
Mark has his hand up.
Oh, Mark, yes.
Thank you. So just a couple of quick comments. One is that when we were expanding the charter, I should take one step back. I think when the survey was done, I think we were moving pretty gung-ho on moving to 17 Herndon Street for senior center. So I mean, I personally didn't really talk about senior activities down there because I was really hoping it was going to be at 17 Herndon. I don't know if I'm the only one who did that or if other folks thought the same way. When we talked about expanding the charter for SWEC, we also talked about whether or not we should include in the charter something specific about consideration of active living center that reached others age 60 plus. I'm being careful with my words. And we decided not to put it into the charter explicitly, but that clearly with the discussion, there was an understanding, and I think Karen, you already talked about it very nicely, that it's certainly part of the consideration set. It's being considered in different ways. So I think it's important that you, the council, know that it is part of the consideration set, and not sure what the next steps will be, but it's part of the discussion. And if you feel strongly about it, it would probably make sense to share those feelings with the members of the committee.
How would we word our strong feeling in terms of what it is? I mean, we made it onto the survey.
Well, it's, you can talk with us and I can hear that as well. I mean, they do know that this is one of the spaces that's being considered as part of the feasibility study. We knew that some of the criteria that we looked at that's especially pertinent to the COA is multi-generational use.
Multi or intergenerational?
Multi-generational, what's the difference?
Multi is different generations in one space, not necessarily interacting.
Okay.
Intergenerational is different generations interacting and doing things together. So there is a clear difference between inter and multi-generation, and that should be specified on things.
That's a good point, and we will, I'll bring that back to the council. I think that there was an assumption of either one being excluded, but that could be an assumption on my part. So,
I'm just, I don't want to cut you off.
well, and another one is coordinating with other town projects. Again, there's a lot of balls being juggled in the air. So what else is, that those are two of the biggest ones. Meets a demonstrated need. And then this is a demonstrated need. So there's really three top ones that the active living center option could be considered part of.
I guess where I'm challenged, Mark, is what is it that we would vote to say that's distinct from what's happening to make something different happen, to get senior center more seriously considered?
I don't think it's a vote per se. I think it is just, Karen is a liaison from the council already and sharing with her some thoughts. And it may be that as discussions are taking place, some members individually want to attend the meetings and to kind of listen to what's being discussed and how it could be viewed. I don't think it's anything specific. I think it's more just kind of making sure that it's kind of part of the mix, which I think it is, but just making sure that that's how voices are heard about, hey, let's consider this, or how might that work, or I think with the feasibility study, it's unlikely that the proposal and the feasibility study would be just an active living center as we're talking about it, but rather it would be part of a facility that does multiple things, and that would be one of those things. So, for example, a second floor or a first floor, or something like that.
So you're talking now about the feasibility study that we're about to put the RFP out for? You're thinking it's most likely not going to be focused on just senior center? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think that the use of the land on Simon's Way, especially the larger area, I think that what we'd be asking the feasibility study is, how could we work with a facility to handle the needs that we've talked about that could do other things also, not just an active living center.
Okay, so I was trying to understand, is that a separate feasibility study, or you're envisioning the feasibility study still looking at all age kinds of things? Is that where it's going?
So the feasibility study is going to look at where facilities could be that could respond to the needs that we've identified. It doesn't say that that's the only thing that they would do, but that's what it would be. So that's the feasibility study piece. The Simon's Way Committee is working and looking at all sorts of different ideas for how that space could best be used to meet the needs of the town. One aspect of that, I think, certainly can be active living center. But I think, Marilyn, what you're asking is, is it just that? And no, I don't see that it's just that.
Okay. In my mind, it doesn't totally reconcile with, again, the findings of the last thing. The immediate focus for the next 2 to 3 years is on senior needs first. But
So
we can talk about that later.
Yeah, I think that the tighter we try to define things now, the less likely it's going to be that we're going to find any solutions that we're looking for. I think right now the opportunity, it needs to start fairly open, kind of as it is. But the tighter we try to define things, I think we're going to preclude ideas instead of include them. And I don't think we're at that phase at all.
Okay. Thank you for your report. All right, Elder Services report and use of ARPA funds report.
All right. May was a fantastic month for the center. Just a few of the highlights. We had our health fair on May 11th. That was pretty well attended. It was a good day. We started, well, we didn't start, but we started with some high school students bridging generations. We had game night and rock painting, which were both huge successes. We were really excited about that. The students did a really nice job. I think we had 47, 48 for the rock painting. It's showing a pretty good need. It was 6 to 7. But both were really good events, so we're excited about that. Birthday lunch was on May 4th. We had a trip. We're starting to do mini trips alongside of our larger trips. So last month in May, we went to the Alcott Orchard House, Concord, Massachusetts. Emery Cafe, moving pizza. We did 80 for Brady and got really good attendance for that. So really nice. And I threw in I didn't know where to throw this in, but we're looking at patio umbrellas for the patio. I just. If you can, if you look at the numbers, if you have any questions, please ask. But before May, the largest month that the center had was March. And May was even bigger than March. So May was officially our biggest month that we had for interactions. I'm going to say interactions because some were events, some whatever it is. So we had over 3,000, which is over 3,100. So I'm really excited about that. It just really brings it up to a different level. So that was really good. June, we have even more coming up. As you can see on page 2, you can read through there. We are trying really hard to look at programming. We are looking hard at programming. You know, Anna, who has started, has been really focused on programming. I think this is one of the first times that we've really had one person really focus on programming, which is really good. And she's bringing in a lot of new things, a lot of things back. So we're excited for that. So June is completely filled, which is awesome. So feel free to ask any questions on any of the programming. And then the last few things, a couple of updates is, I don't know if there was another place in the agenda for this, but we've been working on the mulch beds around the Pleasant Street Center. I know Jean Prado, I think Jean, she came out and helped get the front bed started. We had someone else come out last week to kind of, you know, rake it and clean it up, and we're gonna, by the end of the week, get that bed mulched. So we're on track to really try to get the outside of the center looking better. Recently, last month, North Reading and us, we applied for an enhanced digital literacy grant. Combined, Reading would take lead on it if we get it. It would get us 35 iPads for seniors with digital plans. And it would also pay for a part-time tech person. And our plan is, part of it would be to focus on access to healthcare, online healthcare systems that older adults have. But we're hoping to also take it a little bit further and start tying transportation needs into it. So this is a good opportunity. I think in total, the grant would, between the two towns, roughly would get us $102,000. So fingers crossed on that. So, you know, that's our first step on working. It's kind of nice to work with other towns, put our heads together, and to see what we can do. So we're excited.
How will we know?
Probably within the next couple months. I think early fall, August maybe. I have to go back and look.
I apologize to anyone that I said that we received in our conversation. I thought you said this.
So I'm hoping it comes through.
Okay.
Not yet, but we applied. So it's submitted. That's officially written and submitted.
Definitely.
What is the funding source?
I knew you were going to ask that, and I forgot to look it up before the meeting today, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'll get it to you. I apologize for that, not having that ready. The other thing that we're doing with North Reading is we're exploring transportation alternatives with North Reading. And part of that is, I missed a meeting today I couldn't make it to. We're kind of exploring volunteer transportation. And I know Reading used to have something like that, so we're kind of exploring that again. We're going to together explore a ride scheduler software where this is where the iPads would come in handy. And if we get the first grant, we'd have somebody to help teach people to maybe how to call a ride and get transportation. So we're hoping that comes into play. And part of that is also, there was a meeting today with Uber and Lyft. So as you can see in the first part of this report, we are hammering programming. On the second part here with the grants, we are hammering transportation. And then on top of that, within the next 2 weeks, there's another grant through MCOA. It's a SIG grant, development and implementation of outreach programs to expand the capacity of COA. So there's another outreach grant that I am in the midst of writing and trying to go for as well. So what we're trying to do right now is we're trying to do program, we're trying to do transportation, we're doing outreach. And we're leaving nothing on the table. So, and we're getting the funding for it. So, and we're trying to get the funding for it, I should say. So if we get this, the first grant would be 16 months funded for that part-time position and running. Hopefully we're going to explore the ride scheduler thing, even if we don't get the first grant. So that's exciting. And we'll continue to explore the Uber and Lyft on top of the transportation that we already have. And then working on implementing or developing an outreach program and applying for that. So those are the last couple things that are pretty big.
Great job.
So
Can we use ARPA money if you don't get funding pretty soon?
I'd have to check with Jenna on that. But I was going to mention ARPA. Well, Jenna's going to talk about the ARPA, right, Jenna?
Nice segue.
We're going to go to that.
Wait, we have a question.
Yes.
I have a question, a comment. I went to the Bridging Generations game night and it was really excellent. The high school students were so wonderful to work with and very respectful, and it was really an awesome opportunity. And I appreciate the fact that it was in the evening, and I do hope that there will be more opportunities like that.
My plan,
Excuse
sorry
me,
to
but
interrupt.
I ditto that. I was there. It was phenomenal.
My plan is to keep the evening stuff. We're gonna take a pause for a second because there's a lot coming up in the next 2 to 3 weeks. I need a somewhat of a, I shouldn't say but we need a little bit of a breather. But the plan is to continue the evening. The students want to come back originally they only want to come back in the fall, but they want to come back in the summer to do some programming.
Wonderful.
So even when they're out of school. And what's encouraging is I got a few phone calls. I had one lady call. She's like, well, I've never been able to do anything at the center because this is the first time I've ever been able to use your center because it's after I work and I get home. And she was tickled to death about that. So we're starting to be able to reach, again, this is going back to the previous conversation at the beginning of this morning or this night. We're starting to reach those folks. And that's part of it. And there was one other thing I was thinking of, and I just forgot it.
We'll come back after John.
John.
Yes, John.
Should I be asking you a question on this part of the opera or wait for John?
Wait for Jenna on
Wait for
that.
John, okay.
So the plan is to try to continue at least maybe the evening programming, because we did get a good, I remember what I was gonna say.
Yes.
And it was also encouraging because we had 15, 16, 17, I think, seniors for the first night. And that night was really good. And we got, I think, 25, 26 seniors for the second night because everyone enjoyed the first night. So it quickly jumped.
Yeah.
And which was really showing how good the program was. So we're really excited. And thank you to the high school students. I got a nice shout out in the public school weekly email from the superintendent. So that was really nice.
Should we send them a thank you?
I don't think it hurts. It wouldn't hurt. It'd be really nice.
Well, thank you.
Jenna will do ARPA, I hope.
All right, Jenna? ARPA.
Sure. Well, I think at the last meeting, there was just a request on what we were exactly spending the money on. So I came up with just a list of all of the programs that we're doing specifically. So that includes the Wellness Wednesdays, the Lunch and Learns, the larger bus trips. As Chris just spoke to, we're adding in the mini bus trips, the Monday community lunches, and all of our programs pretty much, give or take 2 or 3. Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, are now all no fee programs. So specifically, you can see on the itemized budget that you received, Nancy actually requested the actual numbers in the financial report. So I pulled that off of Munis, so you can see all of the deductions out of the ARPA funding account. It doesn't look like we've been doing a lot if you see the actual percentage of the expended funds, but we are working tremendously hard, and we just want everyone to keep in mind that we just became fully staffed. So Chris and I in the beginning, along with Carrie and Elise, were kind of on our own little island implementing all of these programs. And now that we're moving full speed ahead, we anticipate, being able to spend the funds and spend them appropriately and thoughtfully, and not just, throw money out the door, but really think about what we're offering to our seniors in the community. And what you won't see on here quite yet either is the funds that were approved in FY24 that will help to offset some of our staff. So that would be our volunteer coordinator that will be coming in FY24. ARPA will also partially fund our program coordinator job. Before that was part-time, and now that is full-time, thanks to ARPA funding. So you won't see those numbers reflected on the report right now. So those are just a couple things to keep in mind. So with that being said, if anyone has any specific questions on any of the expenditures, you could feel free to ask, and Chris and I could help answer.
And I don't know if it's possible to show a page of this. I wanted to just do some explanation. People have trouble reading this. I just wanted to do a sample. If you've got it handy. It could be the trust fund ones either one, but that's getting ahead of me. If it's a problem,
clarify a question?
yes.
So looking at this, it looks like the remaining revenue is almost 700,000. That is a significant amount of money. And is there a deadline by which we need to spend that money? And what are the plans for that money?
Right, so that's what we're working on as a team right now. We do have a spreadsheet that all of us are working on internally, talking about how we can spend these funds appropriately over the next couple fiscal years. And that's something that we're discussing as a team.
Is there a deadline? Like, for some reason, I'm seeing 12/24.
I believe it's FY26. Mark, would you happen to know that?
It has to be earmarked, but spent by
Earmarked.
by 2024, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Mark, but it can be used up until 2026. Is that correct, Mark?
I believe
Yeah.
that to be correct. So it's, earmarked and committed, and then the physical date is maybe mid 26. Does that sound right? I don't think it's the end of 26. I think it was
Yeah,
not.
and
Already mid.
Mark, also, like, if we do that full feasibility study, that's a big chunk of the ARPA funding as well. That's like what, 250, 300,000?
so
If we do a full
300,000 out of the, yeah.
So just to clarify, so the ARPA committee and then recommended, and then the select board approved $300,000 to be used toward feasibility study, and then an additional 600,000 toward programming and programs. So those are two separate buckets.
Sweet.
So 300,000 will be deducted from the total,
The 9.
from this.
Right, well, and we've already used a certain amount towards Walgreens as well, which is.
So is this, it starts with 800,000, but it's supposed to be 900,000? Is that
So the programming side is 600,000.
right? But it's.
Right, and then also the programming's broken down into supplemental programming space, virtual programming, bus trips, wellness programs. So there's specific money that was allocated and voted on by the select board as well. That's been
So
discussed.
where is the other 100,000 on this chart? Because it starts with 800,000.
Let me see here.
looking at that question from Mark, does the agreement that was just reached about the debt ceiling, I know I've seen many write-ups that say they had to decide that any unspent funds are going to be recalled by feds.
Oh, so, the question of ARPA funds that were yet to be spent, I guess?
Well, Are
So-
ARPA funds that don't get spent by whatever their restriction is? I haven't seen any details on it, but I've seen it listed among one of the primary decisions in many places. I think at one point I thought I had overheard that excess funds might go to the general fund, and it's sounding like it would be the federal general fund, not
I
ours.
think it's federal, and also I think it was unallocated funds. We allocated every penny and
All right.
and would not let a
All
penny
right.
get wasted.
Okay, I'm just sort of raising the question because it was part of it, and they're talking about literally clawing back is the way they word it, funding, so.
So I think that
Should be
the
aware.
select board, I think we allocated all of the funds.
Okay, all right.
So into categories. Now, not all of those categories have been fully spent
Right,
as of now, including what we're talking about right now. But
Right.
it was my understanding that that's not what the clawback related to. I thought it was
Okay.
unallocated funds.
okay, we should probably just make sure we know. I don't have any details, that's why I'm asking, but it makes me nervous when they talk about clawing at our money.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And I will ask about the 800,000 versus the 900,000. I'm thinking that maybe some of it was pulled out to offset the staffing, and I don't know if that would be under a separate line item under the ARPA funds. But that would be my guess. So I will ask Sharon, because obviously I don't run these reports quite often, and I'm not in charge with how they're allocated line item wise, but I will figure out where that other funding is and let you know.
Put it up.
Yeah, Rosemary, you'll be next. I'd asked Chris to put up just a sample page. This is Marilyn's mini lesson on how to read this monster, because I know a lot of people don't like this report. If you take any one line, and they're hard to read up there, these correspond to payments to vendors. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but this is basically an invoice processing system and accounting for where expenditures are made by invoice. Is that a fair description?
Yep, invoice. You'll also see the P card on there, which is our town credit card that we use.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so line by line, if you go through, you won't see the name of the event that Chris and Jenna are running. You'll see, as a rule anyway, what you'll see is the vendors we used. And it will be up to Chris and Jenna to track back to the events, and whatever got approved. But that's what this is about. So it's that detail, and it's great for auditing. I mean, it shows exactly where the money's going.
And it's nice to see local businesses being utilized, Larry's, Professor's Market.
We're trying hard to utilize local businesses just to kind of give back a little bit. I think it's kind of a nice thing.
Next meeting, if there are more questions, I can do another mini lesson. The goal is to get us comfortable with these financial things. We've got the summary report as well. Actually, you already did that one, but anyway, okay,
Which her presentation answered my questions.
okay, all right. Rosemary,
Well, Nancy beat me to the question of the difference between the 800,000 and the 900,000, because I believe that's what we were awarded for elder services was $900,000. So there's a difference there of $100,000. And it seems like the bulk of this money has already been used up by architects. Almost $112,000 came out of that money. So I think we should be careful where we spend it in the future and make sure that we definitely need services like that. I'm sure we will in the future, but the bulk of the money has gone towards them. So I want to see the bulk of the money to go towards elder services and elder programs for people who are alive today, because we're not going to see this center. The other thing I wanted to talk about, somebody mentioned the word clawback. I think that was on a national scale when they were talking about clawbacking unused COVID money. So if the town has any COVID money nationally, we should use it.
All right, thank you. We'll look into it and get the details, just make sure we don't get blindsided with a, okay, pay it back tomorrow. Otherwise, you're giving up your town hall, it's ours.
I'm 99% sure that it has to do with the COVID funds, national COVID funds. And if the towns, cities and towns didn't use it, they're gonna claw it back.
All right, thank you.
So,
Yes,
I,
yes.
so my, and it's a question for Jenna and Chris.
Mhm.
Are you all confident that this money can be allocated to specific programs and then spent by whatever we just said, mid-2026? So,
I mean, I don't want to speak for Jenna. For myself, I think, I believe so.
okay,
I think we are really ramping up. Our numbers have shown that. And when numbers continue to increase, the costs continue to increase for events, and we're getting a good response. So I'm pretty confident that we will spend this.
Yeah, and I'll chime in and just echo what Chris said. I agree. I know that there's been some discussion internally about some things that are allocated specifically right now. Like we have 25,000 towards virtual programming, and Chris and Anna are going to work on a survey to see if that is a need of our seniors right now. I know a lot of other centers aren't running virtual programs anymore, and they haven't been seeing much popularity, but we want to make sure that if that's something that our
Only
want,
building that have a
we do
restaurant.
but if not, we don't want to spend $25,000 on virtual programming and have no one attend, right? And then same thing with supplemental programming space. We've been doing some things at the library, but they're not charging us a fee, and we don't really have any place that we're renting right now for supplemental programming space per se. And there's some significant money allocated towards that. So with that being said, we could ask the select board to potentially reallocate some of those funds to make improvements inside the center. And Chris has been a big part of that and advocating for that as well. And just being open to perhaps reallocating some things in a different way than maybe what they're voted on initially. But we are confident that we can spend this money and be very thoughtful with it.
thank you.
Can I-
Yes.
So talking about reallocating money within the Pleasant Street Center, I understand the kitchen appliances don't work. Is there any way to purchase appliances so that, I mean, is that?
No, they do, appliances are working. We put in a new dishwasher.
Okay.
Everything's working. We do have facilities shut off the stove at the end of the week and turn it back on at the beginning of the week, just for safety reasons.
So there's no need to equip anything in the kitchen?
I thought the oven was not operative.
Right.
Yeah, we
It
have
is,
to like the pilot.
What's
Right.
that? What's that,
There's a
John?
light pilot.
Yeah, we just have facilities like the pilot light, but I've been using it for many months now.
So that's a gas.
Why? But that's the gas situation. Why
Yeah.
isn't that addressed that does not have to be shut on and off?
Just because when no one's there, just in case, I mean, it doesn't happen often, but it's an old building. It has pilot lights, so if something was to blow one out, you don't want the gas to, so we're just being cautious.
Would that be an issue with a newer oven and stove?
It depends upon which one you get. And we have a commercial one, and most commercials are like this.
Maybe it's time to look into that then. I mean, quite obviously, the senior center is going to be up and running for at least another 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
So I think
We-
safety concerns, we should check into that.
We have looked at a new stove, and we got a quote for a new stove. What we're actually looking at, which would be more useful, is we don't necessarily need a stove, we just need something to keep the food at the correct temperature, which is typically 165 or higher. Because we don't really cook at the center. We bring the food in, we have to keep it at the right temperature. And so we've been working with facilities on trying to find where we could actually put a food warmer. And we're just trying to figure out where we could fit it in there without taking the stove out and just putting the food warmer.
Why
So,
couldn't we do both? Correct the issue with the stove for safety purposes. I mean, you can buy a new oven that has an automatic warmer
yeah.
that goes with it. I'm concerned about
Yeah.
the safety issue.
It is safe. It is safe.
And I'm actually a little surprised to hear that we've got a gas stove, because back in the whole endless, and it will come up again, I'm sure, when we get to this topic, the smell thing, we were assured there were no gas pipes. Apparently there are gas pipes. We were assured it couldn't be a gas smell because there wasn't gas in the building.
No, there is gas.
Yeah,
There is gas.
the heating system as
Heating
well.
system is gas, so, but we are working on it, so we have, Jen and I have been
I
talking.
didn't notice it last week though,
What's that?
any gas smell.
All right, we're getting ahead of ourselves. It's down concerns about the building, so let's not get ahead. All right, anything further on the ARPA funds and elder services report? Rosemarie, is your hand up, or did you just not taking it down?
Yeah, it's up, but I got a leg cramp from sitting, but a history on that stove is for decades. We've had a gas smell from there. And it's resulted in us calling the police and the fire department, and the ambulance have come down multiple times to the center, costing the town all that money for all the response there. And it should be addressed, it should be fixed, because I don't think we're moving anywhere quickly. As somebody just said, we'll probably be there another 3 years or 5 years. So if we have to use the kitchen in the meantime, it should be updated, the stove. Did you know that we had a lot of evacuations at that center because of the gas smell? Are you all aware of that? And every time there's a gas smell, the police come, the fire department comes, and the ambulance comes. Do you all know that?
They don't come every time. They have come in the past.
I've been there through the years, and they've all come. I'm talking about if you accumulate how many times that they have come. It's been multiple times that we've had that response. So it's never been addressed, it's never been fixed. And it should be.
Yeah, and I think we have to be careful because we do, everybody calls it a gas smell. But when the building is tested, there is not a gas, it's not gas.
We're talking about two
Well,
different
like-
areas. We're
but
talking about two
anyways,
different
I don't-
areas.
We're getting-
Let's come back to
Yeah.
this when we get to our building concerns. We'll
Yeah.
do that. All right, elder services report and ARPA funds, all set on that, everyone?
Great information.
Yeah,
here.
thank you,
thank
really
you.
good job, really
Thank
helpful. I'll just throw out one wild idea is, there are lots of good programs that serve the elderly at the Y, and people complain it's too expensive. Maybe we could have 30 free passes a month or something to
Oh,
get.
that's a good idea.
I said something right for once. And I agreed with Chris tonight. I'm on a roll. Anyway, it's just an idea. It
Oh,
would be
Chris is on a roll.
it would be, comparatively expensive, but they have great programs that focus on the elderly in the middle of the day. And it's the only time you can put your toe in that pool because the kids have overtaken every other possible hour for the swim teams. But in the middle of the day, they go to school, so you can't go in the pool. Anyway, we can talk.
Beverly has to leave.
Okay,
Mention that in the comments.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Beverly left at 7:55. All right, request for funding. Why don't I preface this, or do you want to say? I was gonna preface it with our conversation, but would you?
I mean, so
Go for it. Go for it.
I talked to Jenna and then I talked to Marilyn a little bit about funds. Because even once the town hired me, one of my biggest concerns is long-term sustainability, making sure we have funds. And I talked to Maryland, we are in a great place right now where we have the ARPA funding. And I said, and she agreed with me, which I'm still shocked about. Hasn't happened yet since I've been here, so.
Savor the moment.
And I know. What I said I'd like to do is, because we have the ARPA, and the ARPA can fund a lot of things, I would like to cut back a little bit on the trust funds. This will allow the trust funds to grow, which means we can pull out more or spend more when we're out of the ARPA funds to make things a little bit easier. I just think it makes a little bit of financial sense. I'm not saying don't pull out of them. I'm going to still ask for funds in about 2 minutes here. But I think it'd just be wise. And there's something else I want to pull funds on. There's a couple things I want to pull some funds on. But I just think it would be wise, the interest will build, that goes back in, it gives us more interest. And then in 2026, when we're out of the ARPA, we're going to be sitting pretty good. So it's not a bad, just trying to be financially smart about it.
Makes sense to me. I that's what I'm meeting people and everyone said, oh, yeah. So what it means, I think, is just we'll expect that as we go forward for a while, you'll be less likely to be depending on us for some of the things you ask for now.
Yeah, I think there's some things in here I'm gonna continue to ask for. I think it's always good to kind of pay for, but it's gonna probably be a lower number. And with that said, we have June, we don't have a meeting in July, so I'm gonna ask for July. In both of those months, I'm gonna ask for up to $800.
You need to ask for August as well, because we won't be in here in July to approve
Oh.
August.
Well, okay, so then I will add 800 to the August.
Exactly.
So 800, up to 800 for each three of the next 3 months, for the next June, July, August.
So 24.
Yeah, 8 times 3. That's 4.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So Chris, where is the money right now? Because we know that CDs, for example, and if we're not going to really touch it, CDs are at like about 5% right now. So do you?
That's a good question. I don't, either Jenna or Mark would. Mark, do you have an answer? Your hand's up.
Your hands up. Yay, Mark.
So the trust fund commissioners invest all of these funds, and Karen, you're spot on. The rates are close to 5% nowadays, and they're invested that way. Less so CDs and more so the ability to kind of move, keep things very liquid. There are some stocks in the portfolio, but I think we're 70% fixed income, 30% stocks is the way the portfolio was managed by the commissioners.
Thank you. So someone very knowledgeable is managing our money.
Good people.
Yeah.
It's reviewed every month. It is the treasurer that is kind of monitoring all of this in terms of what's going on.
Yes.
So
Thank you. Okay.
Right. So I'm asking for the next 3 months, 800, up to 800.
And what is that for?
Moving a pizza, birthday lunch. This month it was Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Some refreshments for that. So, and then same things in July and August. Birthday, moving a pizza, birthday lunch. And any other special events that may pop onto the calendar in those 2 months.
So moved.
From where, from what? Bourbon?
Bourbon.
Okay. Your motion from Bourbon, okay. I can't make motions, so I don't want to put my words in someone's mouth. Do we second?
Second.
Thank you. Right. And since.
There's going to be one more request for funds.
Yeah.
Should we do that before we vote?
Coming out of the same account?
Bourbon?
Different? No. Different?
Let's vote separate.
Okay.
That's a separate motion if it's a separate fund. All right, we have a motion. It's been seconded. No discussion, no questions. We have Karen Fautino,
Yes.
Karen Panett,
Yes.
Marilyn Shapley, yes. Karen Janowski,
Yes.
John Parsons.
Yes.
And Nancy Twadro.
Yeah.
Okay, it's passed. 24. All right. We have a next topic on requests?
We have one more request for funds.
Yeah, it became apparent at the bridge group meeting the last time
Uh-huh.
that one set of the bid boxes needs to be replaced. So I would like to request that not more than $50 be expended, particularly from the Laura S. Parsons funds, considering Laura S. Parsons was a bridge player. So no more than $50 in that fund to buy one new set of bid boxes.
Thank you. Any discussion? No? Okay, voting. Karen Fotino? Yes. Karen Panett?
Yes.
Carolyn Shapley, yes. Karen Janowski?
Yes.
John Parsons?
Yes,
And Nancy Twadros.
thank you.
And it passes. Thank you.
I just wanted to be the first one to use that fund. That's
Mission accomplished. Great.
All right, Jeff.
I have a request.
Yes.
The pool table and the pool room is being used again, but the equipment is outdated. The cues are, the poles are bent. So they need some new equipment down there.
I also forgot in my report, there's a bunch of ladies playing billiards now after line dancing on Wednesdays, and it's absolutely amazing. So there are usually about 6 or 7 of y'all.
And the pool cues aren't any good for us. We need some short ones. We need ones that are straight, because they're all crooked down there. So we need some
That's
new
from hitting the
equipment down
wall.
there.
Do we have an estimate on that?
Ask Chris, I don't know anything about the cost of those things.
Stand by, okay. While you're researching, we have one, do you have your motion on the rubber things?
Oh, pertaining to our giveaways.
Right, we were talking, we need some council on aging materials to hand out. We won't have them that are specific to council on aging by friends and family this week, but by the fall fair, we would like to have some inexpensive things with council on aging as part of outreach and some contact. So I think it was Jean that came up with the idea of how about those rubber jar openers? Yeah, and we can have it printed with council on aging and some contact information, something to that effect. And I asked Jean to research a price and
I
ask for the
did.
money.
I researched 2 companies, depending on your text on and the size. They run 4 inches, 5 inches, and you do have to pay for a setup for the printing. So the average pending quantity is anywhere from $1 and under each. So if you wanted 300 pending, again, the text on it, you could probably get 300, well, $500.
What is it? What's the item? I don't know what you're talking
You
about.
know those rubber jar openers,
Rubber
with just a
jar
flat
openers.
piece of rubber, you put it over the lid and you twist
Oh.
it, it creates traction, so miraculously you can get the jar open.
Yeah.
Those are great.
Sample, and I didn't bring my sample.
Anyway,
So,
so we need a motion for up to $500 for rubber jar openers.
and pending the quantity,
From you.
pending the quantity.
Did you say 300 for 500 of those?
Okay, yeah.
500.
Oh,
Because you have to pay for the setup of the print.
right,
I think she said 500 for 300, right?
that's what I thought.
Oh. And where would that money come from? Which
Jars.
Again, why can't,
Why?
take it out again?
ARPA funding?
Why
We
can't we
could take it out
of
there.
the-
We don't need to vote for that.
No, we actually don't.
I mean, this is gonna be given out town.
How about we,
I'd like us to be able to place the orders soon, because I'd like to make sure we've got it by fall fair, that's all.
Jenna? That's a,
That's a great question, because it's used for, outreach for
Outreach,
specifically the COA, right? Or elder services as well.
it could be both. We were thinking COA for this. There's a lot of elder services stuff. There's really nothing that's COA to make people aware of what it is or how to
Yeah,
contact.
I'd probably prefer to use one of the trust funds for that, if that's okay. I know Schroeder specifically for outreach. But I would prefer to use one of the trust funds for that specific because we haven't really been using the ARPA funds for marketing specifically. If that makes sense.
That's fine, we're just trying to jump on the bandwagon of this.
Yeah,
big
no,
water
no,
fund.
definitely. And
It's a small
I'll ask about that. I just get a little nervous if we go outside of what we've been doing.
I
I
understand.
like to
I
ask
just,
first.
in the interest of making it so Mark has to leave. Thank you, Mark. Mark is leaving at 8:05.
Thanks, Mark.
What is gonna be printed on those items?
It might be as simple as Reading Council on Aging advocating for elders, something like that.
It's just gonna say not a senior center.
That's
In
what I
those
was gonna ask you. I don't even know if you should put elders on there.
This isn't on it if we just put council, advocating for age 60+ residents.
And it would have a dual use.
Well,
But let's stick with Burbank, because I think it'll be simpler.
And we need $100 for cube sticks.
All right, well, let's
Do you
finish
think
this
that
one.
would be enough?
Let's make this one from Burbank so we can have a decision, so we can order it, so we can actually have them by the
So
fall.
we're saying 300 in quantity, is that sufficient?
It's 300 more than we've got right now, and if we run out of them, we'll order more. We know it's a success.
So why don't we allocate, say, 550 to be on the safe side?
Okay,
I might be able to get more.
so we need a motion to have allocated up to 550 from Burbank. You're nodding, but I need you to say it. I can't make the motion.
It's been moved, so moved.
Second. All right. Okay, up to 550 from Burbank for the rubber.
Yeah.
not hoses.
Can you write thingies in the meeting minutes?
Karen Patino,
Yes.
Karen Panett,
Yes.
Marilyn Shapley, yes, Karen Janowski,
Yes.
John Parsons.
Yes.
And Nancy Twice.
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. We will have COA rubber jar openers.
Okay, we have to determine.
I know, well, that could be a separate discussion.
Okay,
Let's do
perfect.
let's do the pool cues though next.
Move to allocate $100 from the Burbank funding for pool, what is it?
Cube sticks.
Q stick.
How many will we get, Chris, for that money?
I think that'll get us 6, and we'll see how we are. And then if we need to next time, we'll get more.
Well, and 6 will give us a variety of lengths, short ones?
Yeah. Get a variety.
Okay,
Second.
do we have the motion?
I make the motion and Nancy
Where did
seconded.
it move from?
Burbank.
Burbank, okay. All right, another vote. Chugging here. Karen Patino,
Yes.
Karen Panett,
Yes.
Marilyn Shapley, yes. Aaron Janowski.
Yes.
John Parsons.
Yes.
And Nancy Quadros.
Yes.
Cue sticks and jar openers all in one night. That's exciting. Okay, we're getting something done.
Amazing.
I think, was there anything else that is a request? Not, also, we had the, what are those called? The bins, what are they called?
Oh, John.
Bid boxes, cue sticks and jar openers. And parties for 3 months. It's a good night. Okay. All right, on the jar openers, while we're there, if, I don't know if we need a motion on this, if we simply put on it, Council on Aging, advocating, or advocates, supporting, residents age 60+, serving residents age 60+, any preference?
Serving the 60+ community.
Serving the 60+ community, how's that?
That sounds good.
Right, do we need to vote on that?
No.
That's good, 'cause I'm running out of room. You've never had this many votes.
We already voted on the property.
I don't, healthcare funding and collateral materials. The trust fund financial report. I had asked Jenna to do the detailed one partially because I wanted to do my little mini lesson and say, this is how you read one of these, but also we really need to see these every month. And so we have it, now that everyone knows how to read it, I encourage you to do so and ask questions if you've got them. And we also have a summary report that is, that Jenna also got for us, which shows the bottom line of where we stand. It's a one pager, everyone got. So we have a lot of money and we'll have more if we start spending less, moving things over into ARPA. Anyone, any discussion, any need to go through any of this? No? Great. Catching up on time a little bit here. All right, new business from 7:25, moving right along. Actually, we just covered this discussion of potential FY24 trust fund expenditures. We've agreed we're going to start whittling them down and shifting over to ARPA. And I think that's all we need for discussion tonight. What I had hoped to do originally was I keep talking about this grid, I actually got it almost developed. I'll probably bring it in August. Start looking mission goal by mission goal and tracking it funds of things we might like to propose. I think I'll probably still do it, only it won't necessarily be trust fund. It could be ARPA expenditures. It's a brainstorming exercise, but we can defer that to August. Check. Next steps in sharing info with the community regarding the new senior center. We have exciting news. We shared with you a draft PR statement, and then today I sent an updated draft PR statement, which I think I actually didn't print. What's happened is I reached out, as was suggested at the last meeting, to Adele, who put me in contact with Jane Wellman, who, among other things, for the town does their public information, and I explained what we were trying to do, and I shared the first draft of the PR statement, and I shared the list of all the places we'd like to send the PR statement or something close to it in the way it's worded, and a link to the video. And she's thrilled to help us. The first thing she did was she rewrote suggested alternative text for the PR statement, and that went to everybody this morning. Hopefully you saw it. And she said the list of where we want to go, she's got it all set up. She can just push the button and poof, it will go once we're happy with it. And she's also more than willing to help us with next step videos. She's been looking for an opportunity to do like little micro videos. And the example she gave was, suppose you wanted just a 2-minute video on let's look at what's wrong with the kitchen, or let's look at what's wrong with the bathrooms. Just a series of little short pieces, getting to some of the things that we didn't include in the first one because we were time limited, but really focusing on them. So she's a great resource and she's free. And she wants to help us, and it's endorsed, and she can send these things out from the town of Reading, which will give it, if we're comfortable with that, sort of the extra endorsement of, this just isn't those weird people on the Council on Aging that we've never heard of. It's actually something the town wants residents to be aware of.
Can I just, I do have one comment about it.
Yeah.
She wrote that Reading senior population needs, can we just change senior to 60 plus?
Yep.
It's in 2 different places.
Yeah.
Because we want to get rid of that senior terminology.
And what do you want it to be?
60 plus.
60 plus population?
For adults, it says on. 60 plus, we've used community before, the 60.
Communities.
Community or 60 plus residents, Reading residents. We've used that before.
Yeah, it's something other than seniors.
Okay. Other than that, is everyone comfortable with the way that Jane worded it?
Yeah, she has actually got seniors in here 3 different times.
Okay, we'll get those out.
Thanks.
Good catch. All right, do we need a vote on that? We should probably vote to send it out into this whole distribution. We need a motion to use as amended for these suggestions. PR,
Do we need to vote?
I don't know. Is there anyone that has any issue with it? Can we just move ahead with this? There will be more of these. I mean, this is the beginning of a communication thing, just where this was so widespread. I thought, if nothing else, I wanted to make sure council members were aware and people had an opportunity to speak up. But we've talked about doing communication quite a few times in the past and have started things already.
Anyone think we need to know about sharing information with the community?
Yeah, we shouldn't, I don't think. Don't get a vote on sending pleasantries every month.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, then we'll move forward on that. Is there anything else in next steps we wanted to talk about? I can think of. Not for sharing information anyway. Discussion of council member concerns regarding the PSC building and grounds. Some of that we touched on already,
But I would like to, I have several questions. I know there's conflict, it's a gas odor, it isn't a gas odor. My concern is the heating system maintained annually by a professional person that comes in and inspects after the heating season. That's one question. Do you know if there is, Chris?
There is, and we have had the company out numerous times over the past 9 months too.
Has anyone noted, because I have been there, and there is definitely a gas odor for me. And then when you have someone in a room that starts to feel a little dizzy and headachy, that they have to leave, or when you're in a certain room and then from another room, someone comes in and questions if the upstairs kitchen has a stove because they're complaining about gas odor in the other room. I just hope that maybe is a time for National Grid to come in with their monitors, et cetera, and do an inspection. It could be something out in the street that's seeping in, or maybe a maintenance bolt or something that needs to be replaced. That's my major concern. And this is a good time to do it when the heating system is not in use.
this came up at select board and what Fidel said, and that's why I thought we didn't have gas. He said there are no gas lines near there. I thought I heard him say, but clearly there are gas lines there. But he said it wasn't gas. He said it was exhaust, that it was an unfortunate placement of an exhaust pipe, but that wasn't gas, it was exhaust. So I'm of course sitting there thinking, so if we suck the air out of the exhaust pipe of a car, that's better. I mean, it's not going to explode. It's certainly not.
I don't think it's exhaust. And I don't think, Marilyn, I don't think it's
Yeah.
exhaust. It
All right.
seems to come on certain times of every day, the smell upstairs in the rooms upstairs.
We need someone to identify what it is, and we need.
Nobody has been able to identify it.
Well, we haven't had the right people yet then. And
That's the key, the
And-
right people.
we need the right people to find out the answer. It's not just a question of is it gas that's going to explode? It's what is it? Because it's clearly making people feel ill, whether they're seriously ill or not, but they shouldn't feel ill at all. And maybe it's an air quality expert as opposed to a gas expert. You know, every time these train wrecks happen, they get air quality people out and they evacuate whole cities because it just isn't healthy to be breathing. We need someone who really knows, who's an independent, unbiased person to say, this is what's happening in this building.
That's the key word, independent, not National Grid, somebody else.
National Grid being called out.
Well, they've been called this several times.
Chris, what has been done, do you know?
So there has been many correspondence with facilities. I mean, it is facilities' responsibility. I've had numerous conversations with facilities over the past, since I've been here. We do know it is an odor. We do know, we've been told it's safe, but it's an odor. I know at least on 3 occasions, maybe more, they have called the HVAC company out. Yeah, I've even gone into the attic, to watch them, not that that helps anything.
You gotta be brave to go up there.
But I, you know, I know for a fact that the HVAC company has gone up there and it's looked at the units. Why it cannot be resolved is beyond me. Jen and I have talked about this, just, today, no, today and last week. We have talked about, last week, for the past 3 months, we've been keeping track of when we smell it, the day and the time. And last week I just sent that off to head of facilities, the assistant facilities, Jenna, Matt, and Fidel. So they know this is how many times it is happening. Now is the time, because it's summer, it tends not to happen as much in summer. The system doesn't, tends to happen more with heat. I think it does periodically, does happen in the summer, but not as much. I've been told from head of facilities, Joe Huggins, people are more than welcome to call him and ask or email him. That is all I know. I have moved it up to the chain of command numerous times. Trust me, I would really like to stop hearing about it.
All day long, every day, right?
I've lost probably this portion of the. It is not something that I know Jenna and myself, we're not taking. We're trying to.
Oh, I know you're not taking,
Yeah.
no one is taking this lightly. It's why
and-
being addressed or having someone independently come in and rectify this.
Yeah, we did suggest also to bring National Grid out. That was a suggestion that's been made. And we also even suggested and asked, hey, like, do we need a new system so this stops happening? Would a newer system make this go away? And if so, maybe we should look into getting a quote for that. So we keep asking these questions and we're just struggling to get a definitive answer. So I think tomorrow, Chris and I, maybe we can CC you, Marilyn, as well, and just mention that this was a very much talked about topic tonight. And we really would like some better answers because it's a question that keeps coming up and we need to address it.
Something the environmental health people should be looking at? State environmental health?
I think I think it's mechanical. I think something's going on mechanically with one of the systems up in the attic. What it is, I'm not sure.
Has National Grid ever been out?
Not that I'm aware of.
Well, why not? It's a gas issue. Because they have specific type of equipment they can test out in the street. They can test around the building. They put devices into the ground to see if it's in this earth. And they can test inside the building.
National Grid's been out a few times. I think there's one particular family I know, they lived in a street in Reading when National Grid redid everything. They had a problem nobody else on the street did. And they called in an independent guy and he came in and found the problem in 20 minutes. And National Grid looked at it for months.
Who did
So-
they call?
I don't know. But I
Can you
can
find
tell
out?
you.
Find out?
And this,
Ghostbusters.
about 20 minutes ago, nobody
Yeah,
had it.
it's a different idea of it, maybe thinking about just short term, like maybe getting some air purifiers in the building to help try to mitigate some of the initial.
We've installed CO2 detectors, the problem is CO2 is typically odorless.
Yeah.
And this is clearly not odorless.
One of the advantages of never having access to the senior center is I have never smelled it because I can't get in there.
The good thing is right now, we're at a good point to look at it. Like I said, it happens less right now during the summer months, so we can open the windows, which helps with ventilations. We do have some air purifiers upstairs. Doesn't really make a huge difference. But like I said, right now, because we're going into summer,
Yeah.
we're in a little bit better place. something good to take a look at before next fall.
How can we help you? The COA help you on this issue? You know, it sounds to me like you guys are doing the right thing and you're calling and you're talking. What do you think the COA can do? Should we send, I don't know, one thought is maybe the COA should send a letter to the town manager, CC the facilities and the select board, describe the problem, and say that what is currently being done is not effective. And
All those groups have been notified through the years. In
No,
addition
but
to the
but
fire
what-
department and the police department, when they come to the senior center, people have stood up and told them, we have a problem in this building. The fire department said, oh, we'll look into it. We'll go back to Chief Burns and we'll get that straightened out. Nothing happened. And I do think, I do think it's related to the weather and winter. Chris is correct, we're not smelling it as much in the summer. So it is a winter issue. So even if you hired an expert now, he could sit there all day and not have that odor because maybe the heat doesn't go on.
Well, they can turn it on.
They can turn it
You can turn it on.
So,
when they
so
clean
my question is really to Jenna and Chris. How, we're kind of independent from the elder services. How can we help make more of a ruckus about this so that it's solved? Does anybody have, you know, the only thing I can think of is that, you know, we write a letter. We post it in the local papers and
Go up there and pretend you're faint.
what,
Go up there and pretend you're faint. That'll-
I don't know.
But we could also call like environmental services and we could just go outside the path. You know, I don't want to be pulling rank or pulling rugs out from anyone, but how could we help?
I don't have, on my part, I do not have any recommendations on how you can help.
Okay.
I am following my protocol in chain of commands.
Yeah.
And I'm doing everything I can do, you know, my top priority is to make sure the seniors, well, sorry, seniors, older adults are safe. You know, and I want to make sure everyone's aware of that.
Chris, now, is there record? Because when you do have the burners cleaned in your home residence, there is a record they've been out to clean it. Is there a log? The person who's in charge of this facility for heating, is there a log showing when they came out to refurbish or clean the system?
I mean, that would be facilities have had that.
Is there any way for Jenna or someone to check into that? To say, when was the last time this was actually maintained and cleaned?
I'm sure we can ask to see what the logs are. I don't even know how old the systems are. So, you know, we can ask questions.
How about if we send a letter to Fidel saying at our August COA meetings, next time we're meeting, we would like to hear what will be done to fix the problem.
But I think it should be looked into now, because now.
It has to be, if he's gonna have answers by August.
Jenna,
Yeah.
you-
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be helpful too. You know, someone from facilities could even come to a meeting or give us a paragraph of what's been done and any suggestions that they have. And I think from my point of view, I think sending just a quick email, just recapping what was discussed tonight, Marilyn, maybe coming directly from you or someone else on the board would be extremely helpful in the moment. And just,
Who do I send it to?
I would send it to Fidel and Joe Huggins, or maybe just Joe Huggins at first, and see if you respond, or give him a call directly and, you know, ask him about the possibility of National Grid coming out or a separate entity. And
right.
just seeing if we can get some more direct answers.
I'm game. I might run a draft by you, if I may. Just for
Sure.
input, make sure I'm touching the right people, the right age groups, and using the right terminology for people. I think that's a fine idea. I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I think if town hall got a letter signed by 30 or 40 people who said, we go to the senior center and we're concerned about the smell of gas we have with that kind of people behind it, it might make a difference too.
Is there anyone that, I can't get into the senior center, so I can't do this. Is there anyone who does have access to the senior center during normal hours that could
Well,
circulate?
I could get 16 in Bridge and just like that.
That's fine, that's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've
no
done, well, the first class I went to was yoga and I had to wear a mask.
Yeah.
Because in a yoga class, that's the last thing you want to do is be smelling strange things. But people in the fitness classes, we could definitely sign, they're aware of it.
So we'd have to do all of this. There's no way that, say tomorrow morning, someone makes a phone call and they'd be right down there to check.
Probably not.
think not unless Chris or Jenna made the phone call or got whoever you need to make the phone call to make the phone call.
But we're not smelling the odor right now because
Yeah,
it is
he has a
warm
record.
out. So,
But they have a record of it, Rosemary. It isn't that we,
I mean, I'm happy to reach out to facilities tomorrow and ask if they'd be willing to call National Grid to see if they can come out and take a look at the system.
I really like John's idea.
too.
why
To
do they
have, that's what, to have the petitions with the letter saying, it's not just 2 people, it's 100 and
class, it's a whole class. It's
Yeah.
like, what's this? What?
There are other towns, well, the elders in other towns, that word is out. Don't go to regular programs because there's an odor.
Actually, I was having an X-ray done and the woman was from Reading and she said that same exact thing to me.
Really,
Yeah.
that I hadn't heard before. That's
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because she lives in Wakefield now or something. She said, oh yeah, I've heard Reading has, it's got gas in the building, odor.
So if nothing else, there's the liability issue. Someday they do find out it's actually something toxic or potentially explosive and, there's gonna be decades of everybody looked at it and no one found a problem and.
If you draw up the petition, I'd be glad to take it and have the people in the classes that I attend sign it.
John, can you be ringleader on this?
I'll work on it.
All right. John's gonna work on it with you, Rosemary.
Thank you.
Get it started at least. All right, thank you, Laura.
And my other concern, if I may.
Yeah.
Is Chris and several people, mainly Chris, has been working on the garden. There has been a Dr. Garden. Several people have come back this year, correct, Chris?
Yeah, I
But
mean,
there are several that,
It's on
because
Boy
of
Scouts.
age, that they have not. Why doesn't our DPW or town maintain some of these gardens, especially to the left of the building where that wall is? I think that wall needs to be inspected to make sure everything is secure for the stones, because people park under that. And I have seen when I was down there helping out, there is erosion. You can see the soil, the stones coming up. So maybe if the DPW or maintenance would put new soil or put mulch there.
I also want to point out when Jean says I've been working on the beds, I haven't actually been working on the beds. I've been working on getting the bed clean.
But don't worry, putting out-
I mean, I passed by in a pointer,
Yeah.
but I mean, I've been working on trying to find the people to work on the beds.
I mean, I would love to see, even once it's freshened up, let's put it this way. Do a little volunteer group. I mean, I can't expect the members to go and pull weeds, I mean, and cut branches. But why, it's a town building. Why isn't it being maintained?
By the town. Why isn't it being maintained by the town? The last people who took care of that was a husband and wife team, crawling around on their knees, and they aged out. This was before COVID, and so they had to stop because of age. So the grounds have not been taken care of since before COVID.
Well,
I reached out to the DPW today to see if they could help us initially, so we're waiting to hear back. And if they can't, Chris and I have a plan B, so we do plan to address that front bed.
Well, it's not only the front bed, Jenna, it's also that where the trees are to the left. If that was spruced up, maintained, and that wall was making sure it was secure from the, I've seen the soil erosion, we could say, let's put a couple of benches up there under the trees. It's another spot for the activities to be held. I mean,
Or a bocce court.
a bocce court would be awesome, but even a bench that people wanted to sit and maybe have a sandwich or just sit and chat. Because we've been here in that building for a good 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, as far as I know, those two trees in front of the senior center, or the Pleasant Street Center, are looked at by the town arborist, and the head of parks, forestry, and cemetery, Mike Hannaford. So he does frequently check on the trees in town. So if there was a question on any of those trees, he'd be the person to ask.
Not
But-
so much the trees, it's the
The
ground.
wall,
Yeah, it's the wall and the soil level.
The wall looks like it's just in parts, just stacked bricks, and it looked to me like vandalism. So there were a few that were on the ground and now they're not.
it's
back
under
up.
the side.
But they're back up on the top, but it looked to me like vandalism because I couldn't see how those bricks could have jumped off, frankly. They didn't look like it's caving in, and somebody picked them up and put them back, but they're just kind of sitting there begging to be pushed up by an idle foot. Nothing better to do, but I think in general, there are things the grounds could use that seem pretty minor. It just needs to be someone taking responsibility for it in Public Works, I think, or finding a dedicated volunteer like the garden club that will adopt it for the next 5 years or something like that.
The garden club was supposed to do it last year and they did not. And this
Oh,
year, I haven't seen anybody work on it. They have to get together and work on those grounds. It's overgrown and we have to be careful if men come down there with their clippers and their machines. They tend to make everything a square and just chop everything down. They have no idea what's growing there. What's growing there that is a concern is the ivy that's growing everywhere up the wall. Now it's covering the windows. We're gonna be like a castle out of a Disneyland horror show. And we're gonna have to go there with machetes to cut down the ivy to get into the building. So who maintains the town hall grounds?
There
the
are
garden club and
volunteers.
DPW does touch it up.
All right, we're getting a little bit beyond the scope of the
I'll get back on.
Yeah, we
I
need to
think it's,
try to get wrapped up. We've got a few things to go here.
Yeah.
Maybe we could ask someone from Facilities and Grounds to come talk to us at a meeting about what the plan is for maintaining areas like this, and their suggestions.
That's a good, I think, I second that.
All right, so maybe we could get them to come in August. Making a note. Would it be facilities or DPW?
What are we talking
Mike
about?
Hannaford,
Grounds.
Mike Hannaford,
Like, but who is he? What does he do?
he's basically, I think, in charge of forestry.
Yes.
Forestry
Forestry is.
Yeah.
Yep, parks, forestry, and cemetery.
All right, we can follow up. I'd be happy to send an email to whoever asking that they come speak to us. Hear our suggestions and concerns and see what we can do. Friends and Family Day is upon us this Saturday. It's from 10:30 to 3. Nancy has reserved a tent and table, and I know has targeted copies of materials that we've pretty much already been distributing in other places. I know Other Services has a table as well, right? Elder
Community.
Services, do they have a tent?
No,
They don't?
no,
Oh, Elder Services isn't coming?
no. There's no tent. No,
Oh, there's no tent.
no.
What is there? Just a table?
There's a council on aging tent, and then there's going to be a Friends of Reading Seniors 60 plus.
Right next to it?
I don't know. Where it is.
Okay, so Elder Services is not participating in Friends and Families? I guess not.
Yeah, Veteran Services will be there. I think the Elder Services group, I know that the staff, one of the staff has a family commitment.
I'm gonna make an appearance, so I'll be there for a little while, but
Okay.
I can't be there all
Could we
day.
get a hold of, maybe you've already done this, but since you're not gonna be there at
I'll
large,
bring,
could we get a stack of pleasantries?
yeah, and I'll bring some stuff with me.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
All right, so the next question is who can be at our table from 10:30 to 3?
I can volunteer between 12 and 1.
12 to 1 is John.
I can be there with him if you like.
Okay, John and Rosemary at 12 to 1.
I can be there.
What time?
At what time do we need coverage?
Everything except
Morning.
12 to 1.
What time does it start?
10:30.
10:30. I can do 10:30 to 12.
Okay. This is good.
I can do 10:30, I have a commitment, I can be late for, it, so I can do one hour.
Okay. And 10:30, are you to 12 or to 11:30?
I can do till 11:30. If I can extend it, I'll let you know.
Right.
Well, can I just ask though, since we're the first ones, does somebody have already, do we have the materials?
The way that it's worked in the past is the town is gonna come in and they'll set up the tent. They're gonna bring a table, and I think they bring 2 chairs. So if you're, going to volunteer, I would recommend, if you want a comfortable chair, bring your foldable beach chair. As far as things being there.
Yeah.
Someone's like, if Chris can, I'm gonna be there early, because I have all the stuff for the Friends of Reading Seniors 60 plus group. I have the tent and the chairs and a table. It's all going there. So, yeah, and I do have some flyers from last year that we can pass out. But other than that, if you've got some things and someone can stop by, pick them up, and then drop them off at the table at 10:30, or if you can drop them off at the table at 10:30.
Or I could
Some of your
buy-
postcards,
Do you have
do you
any
have handouts of those,
Stuff we
Jenna?
can come by on.
Jenna, your postcards?
Friday? Do you work Fridays?
I will not be there this Friday,
Come by
Thursday, yeah,
Jenna,
before,
Which postcards, Marilyn? Sorry.
the postcards you have printed that has the how to contact caseworkers and all the various services.
yeah, I'll add that into
Okay,
newsletters.
okay, so pleasantries and postcards,
Oh, good. Okay.
and you can bring those early, did you say?
Ken's gonna pick them up.
I can pick them up? Okay. And Nancy, you're gonna be there early, so you can drop stuff off, but you're gonna be divided in focus, because you're gonna be working with
Right.
the other people.
Right.
I can come from 1 to, this goes to 3. I could be there from 1 to 3.
I can be there from 11:30 to 1.
I can be there at 1 to 2, not 3, I'm sorry. 11:30 to 1 is Karen. We don't have to stay the whole time is the other thing. I mean, if we run out of people and volunteers, we've been there the better part of the day, that's fine.
And where is this?
Anybody else online?
Okay, by the-
Birch Meadow.
Basically the outfield of the softball.
Jackie or Karen, can you help us out? No? Jackie?
I'm away this weekend. Sorry.
Okay. All right, well, this is good. We've got, I'll send an email summarizing who said what, when, where, so we're coordinated. It is just on Birch Meadow. You'll see people setting up all over the place, just kind of wander around. You see a friendly face is how I found people last time.
Bring things, just because if it's windy, it all blows away.
Yes, yes, those rocks would be really
That
helpful.
rocks.
Oh, the rocks, yeah.
Actually, John gave me the rocks.
The ones that were painted last week.
Oh, I can give you those too.
Yeah.
Let's do those.
But remember, we're gonna lug them back out. Little rocks, but heavy enough to hold papers, because stuff does blow all over
Yeah.
the place.
Yeah.
I can pick up a bag of candies we can give, because that will bring the kids with
Yeah.
their parents.
Yeah.
Can't,
What do we,
so,
sorry, we've been here a long time.
I know.
Yeah.
It's,
We're getting there. Hang on.
So the yellow, that you have in the yellow folder is the one we passed out last year. And what I did was I bought yellow labels, so I covered the old information
Oh, Nancy, that's great.
and
Yeah.
put the new information in.
You're a saint.
And
Okay.
Marilyn, I have a bunch of candy, so I can give it to Will, and maybe you guys can all just split whatever candy we have.
Okay,
I have a lot.
oh, great.
Chris, are you suggesting that we table?
Yeah, hang on, we're getting
no,
there.
that's just,
Hang on, I'm way ahead of you. All right, friends and family, I think we've got it under control. I'll put together an email summarizing, so we all know who's doing what, where. when.
I would suggest we not take the painted rocks there. Were you serious about that, or was that just a comment? Because I think people will take them. They'll think they're a give out.
I do have some rocks that,
Extra rock.
extra rocks.
You
that
bring some of
We
those,
used at previous events.
some of those loose bricks from the wall,
Yes.
and you just kick them off, they fall right off. All right, next item is one that I'm going to ask that we defer till August, but it's the beginning of fiscal '24 in August, and all positions need to be reestablished. We know Nancy is not going to be secretary going forward. I think we should be working hard to get, unless someone wants to do it, my anticipation is that probably won't happen. Other councils, committees, and so boards have town support for doing that role. The council used to, until I took it on for 7 years. There was someone who was employed. What?
Yeah, to give it back to the.
Yes, I think we're ready to give it back to the town. We gave the town a 9-year breather. Because Nancy's done it for 2. It's time for the town. I don't know if one of you can talk to Fidel. We can send him a letter. We've actually started mentioning to this to him last month, but it's an important role and it's not easy.
And it's mandatory
And it's mandatory.
that minutes be
Yeah.
taken.
Yep.
I would do it, but I already do recalc and recreation, so that'd be a lot for me.
I understand. I understand.
But,
But
we could see if we could find someone.
that would be really helpful if we could do that. All the positions, we just have to reaffirm all of them. I would love to rotate out of being chair. I've done my 7 years as secretary and 2 years as chair. Be more than happy if someone wants to take it on to help support the transition. I'm not leaving the board. I will probably be even more involved in being a pain in the neck to recalc and hounding them for things that I think are important. But I think it's important for that to be a rotating role, because we don't want Marilyn to be the voice of COA. We want COA to be the voice. And I think it's really important for someone else to consider moving into that role next year. But we can handle all this in August. The liaisons as well, I saw select board, they also revisit all their liaisons, make sure people want to still do it, make sure everyone wants that person to do it. So it's all kind of up for grabs, and I'd like to have the whole discussion in August.
It's not exactly a liaison thing, but I think we should work on getting somebody on Mystic Valley Auto Services Board.
They don't put people on the board anymore. They put people in committees. It's their new recruitment thing, and Chris has been working on his application for a long time, about a year now.
And I was on the board.
And Karen's on the board. No, she's on the committee.
I'm on the committee.
I spoke to the head of Mystic Valley 4 days ago, and she said she's waiting for the Council of Aging and ready to appoint somebody.
I keep getting told by, what's his name that used to be our chair?
Brian Snow.
Brian, he keeps saying,
Well, according to Lisa Gorgon, she's the number one person there,
Yeah.
right? According to her, she's waiting for the Council on Aging and ready to appoint somebody to the board.
I will get in touch with her tomorrow because that's the exact opposite of what I was told. But to appoint someone, we need someone to finish the application. Amy was going to do it and for a full year said, I'm doing it, I'm doing it, I'm doing it. She didn't do it. And she left. Chris, I know, has had interest in it and has not had time because you've been short-staffed. Someone needs to fill out their application. You need to get interviewed. And Jenna, you had expressed interest at one time, and I know you've got your hands full now too, but it doesn't have to be someone from the Council on Aging. It just needs to be someone from Reading who we feel is an appropriate person to be the contact. But there's a process. You have to go on their website. It's not terribly obvious where it is, but on their volunteer page, there's a form. You fill out the form, you send it in. If they're happy, they're going to call you and set up an interview. They'll interview you. My understanding, and I was absolutely told this was the way it is, but I know you've got a different source, is they then will suggest that you join a committee first to get experience, that they decided that was a better path to recruiting truly engaged board members who
Yeah,
can then grow them.
The reason I wound up talking to her, I was just trying to get a handle between the advisory committee and the board.
Yeah.
I know we've got Neil Schmidt and Kerry Valley on the advisory committee. And I was just trying to get a handle on it. That's what she said to me. Reading has not, Reading's COA. I said, do you mean other services? She said, no,
No.
I mean COA.
What I was
Okay.
told is that
Well-
whoever it is has to be approved by the Council on Aging, but what
Yeah.
happens is you go through that whole application process, then Mystic Valley comes back to us and says, we would like to recommend this, and the Council on Aging has to write a letter. They even sent me a sample form letter saying, and we have to vote, and the Council on Aging has to say, yes, we would like this to be our person.
That's why I'm on as a community member, not as a council on aging member. I just
Well,
wanted to be
and-
part of it, but
And if you're on the board too, I understand they expect you to be on 2 other committees.
yeah.
So I mean, it's a hell of a
It's a huge
commitment.
commitment.
Table this until August.
Yes.
Okay.
But if anybody knows someone who might like to be involved in that, it makes me sad too that we haven't got, a stronger link on their board. But anyway, we can table this till August, but good point.
The next thing that's on the thing is the meetings.
Yeah.
I know Chris at one time, and I think Jana also said it would be good if we went back to the second Monday of the month, so they had time to get their reports up. And I think that's a good
I
idea.
remember an email on that as well. Is that still your feeling?
Yeah, we have recreation the second Monday, but I don't have to be there at every meeting, obviously, Chris. I could rotate and Chris has a good handle on this, and I'm sure Jim, the rec administrator, will have a great handle on rec too. So I think it was just for me that you made the switch, so I'm fine with it going back. And it makes sense for reporting.
Second Monday work with everyone on the council as opposed to first Monday? All right, I will you haven't commented yet, a second.
No, I think it's fine.
Okay, I will put together a second.
Didn't you say
Monday-
that?
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
I will put together a second Monday schedule for FY '24 and we can, I'll circulate it at our August meeting and it will dictate the date of the first meeting in August as well. I think we have covered everything.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's our most fun vote. We have Karen
Yes.
Patino, Karen Panett,
Yes.
Carolyn Shepley, yes, Karen Janowski.
Yeah.
John Parsons
Yes.
and Nancy Twice. We are adjourned at 8:55. Thank you, everyone. Good meeting.
Thank you.
Enjoy July off.
Yes, and I